What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me I have some more RPG horror stories. I've been scouring through my records, also known as my email, for all the juicy RPG horror stories I was submitted. And I think after this batch of videos, I'm gonna make sure to specifically focus and do some of the email submissions so we can cover it together here together. And also ignore me, I got something in my ear for whatever reason. But basically, I'm planning to find a day where we can focus specifically on just email submissions because boy, howdy dowdy, I have a lot. Either way, let's get some RPG horror stories for today. These are regular RPG horror stories, by the way. We'll get to emails at another time, I promise you. Another player bullied my friend about the vulnerability at the table. Hi y'all, I'm posting this on behalf of my bestie who has been really devastated. Why'd I say it so zesty? Hi y'all, I'm posting this on behalf of my bestie who's been really devastated about this and has no energy to explain it all again. But I think that getting some perspective from other TTRPG players might help them, and I agree. My bestie, Bert, is in a White Wolf game run by one of our longtime friends, and repeated problems with another player, Sheila. Bert keeps me in a loop about what goes on in their campaign. It goes by proxy, basically, and every so often that come to me after a session with Sheila said this thing was kinda weird and left me feeling some kind of way. And that would happen like every few months or so for the past year and a half, until it resulted in death by 1,000 cuts. Sheila's track record. Poking and prodding at the particulars of Bert's disabilities, basically scoffing and acting like they're being an attention whore for needing accommodations, like temperature regulation, making sure they actually get a chance to have some playtime every session when they put in a ton of effort to leave the house, which I think is fair for any player to ask for regardless of ability. So Sheila has a problem over temperature adjustment, like what, adjusting the thermostat so the player can feel comfortable because they have a disability. Listen, I don't know about you, I don't know what kind of condition your friend has, but like I have type 2 diabetes, my mother has type 2 diabetes, and I gotta be honest, like when I first learned about everything I need to know about type 2 diabetes, I learned that getting body chills, like actually feeling freezing at times, is like a very common thing with diabetes and everything. So yeah, like right now I'm recording, I'm wearing like, right now it's like 80 degrees outside but the AC is on, I'm like wearing pajama pants and like a big overall basically in order to record because yeah, it can be a little chilly at times, not all the time but at times. Is that what it means? Because of that? If somebody has a disability and you just need to adjust the thermostat a little bit, bring some water or have like a fan faced towards you if it gets a little too hot. Like accommodating people a little bit just by adjusting a thermostat a little bit, it's not gonna kill you, it's not gonna murder you. In fact, that kind of sounds like an a-hole thing to go off about. Now let's say for example thermostat is just cranked to 100 just to make it hot as hell and everybody is miserable, that would be the whole other thing. But if it's just adjusted for that and only one player is complaining about it, then I mean maybe we get more context. I don't want to go off on Sheila just yet. Let's see what's more there is. On the point, act like she's being pushed aside and not prioritized when Bert's character plotline would get any time to shine. Okay, well at that point we have a player that's basically self-absorbed at that point. Yeah, it's not your plotline. If somebody else's plotline is happening, yeah, of course your plotline is gonna take a backseat because guess what? It's not your plotline. It's not Sheila's plotline going on right now. It's Bert's plotline or somebody else's plotline. That's ridiculous. Being weird about Bert being mixed race and always going, I forget you're mixed, you just look white to me. Know that Sheila's a monoracial white person. Culturally insensitive but low-key acting like she knows more about Bert's culture because she vacationed in a neighboring city some years ago. Okay, well I have no idea what the hell that's supposed to mean. Oh yeah, I know you're multicultural. Okay. What's the context for that? Are they being like prejudiced or like semi-racist about it or what? Said it was unfair and acting like everyone had to go Bert's way when Bert asked for everyone to have some consideration in how they played a storyline regarding war and its fallout, since they have familial trauma about being caught in a war zone. I personally had an aside conversation with her once she got really catty, saying Bert would never wait their turn to talk when that's the ADHD babes, which literally everyone in the room has, including Sheila. And if you say to Bert, hey dude, can I finish? They say, oh sorry, go ahead. But you never seem to say that, and then that would hold it against them. Well, if everybody in the room has ADHD and you go off on somebody for having ADHD or something, interrupting, like everybody has ADHD, like at the end of the day, the least thing you could do is just be considerate and not an a-hole about it, which I think Sheila is being an a-hole, at least for being described here at least. Sheila just sounds like a really inconsiderate kind of person. They're just all about me. NPC. I don't get to do my thing. I don't get to have it my way and stuff, and just thinking themselves very self-important. At least that's the kind of vibe I'm getting from Sheila. The worst offense that has Bert feeling the most like crap is that completely on accident, their character wound up helping them process some trauma surrounding the orientation. Our friend running the game is all for using storytelling to help navigate our crap, was really happy that Bert felt safe enough at the table to explore that. Sheila was apparently not okay with being involved with something so vulnerable, and instead of saying that and laying out some boundaries, decided to be passive-aggressive about it and take pot shots at Bert seemingly any chance she could get. By pot shots, what do you mean by pot shots specifically? Like, I understand the general concept we're trying to relay here, but like, is it about someone's sexuality? Maybe somebody at the table is gay, asexual, or lesbian, or whatever. Like a little bit more detail will kind of help us figure out what kind of pot shots, like how bad does it get? Like, let's say for example, is somebody coming out about being asexual, let's say for example, and I don't know, Sheila is trying to make some pot shots towards being asexual and stuff, like, oh yeah, you wouldn't get it, you don't get pussy or something like that. I don't know. Like, what kind of level are we talking about? Like, what are we talking about here specific? What sort of level of pot shots are we going? Or is it just like straight up just insults and berating over someone's sexuality? The kicker was that too is that she claimed it was OP for Bert's character to always have his NPC partner around, when another friend or player said this character in no previous campaign, which Sheila was part of and Bert was not, also had an NPC partner hanging out and helping. Both this friend and DM friend have confirmed the DM friend is running the NPC romance pretty much the same way, and it was no problem in previous campaign. Personally, I think Sheila just decided she didn't like Bert for whatever reason, and instead of being civil and setting boundaries, just decided to make the problem and make them feel like nothing they could ever do was good enough. She let resentment fester until it totally devastated Bert's mental health, because she had to be mean at every turn when Bert thought they were friends, and they were trusting her with knowing something really vulnerable about them that they needed sensitivity towards. And she not only did the exact opposite. When it comes to playing with complete strangers online, because I'm pretty sure Bert and Sheila probably don't really know each other that well, or maybe they don't like each other that well, or known each other for that long to do this, because I don't know anybody that knows each other for this long to just be so insensitive and just not caring like Sheila is. I feel like there's a problem of you playing with a bunch of people that maybe you don't know so well, and you probably shouldn't trust everything to them, right? Like, at the end of the day, if it was like some close friends you knew for years and you're finally opening up about stuff, that's one thing. But if it's a game with a bunch of people you don't actually physically know really well in person, or you just recently met, probably not a good idea to talk about your vulnerabilities to them. Like, if I meet somebody along the street, or like somebody I start playing D&D with for the very first time, I'm not gonna tell them everything about me. Hell, I'd be very much reclusive when it comes to telling anything about myself. Even on this channel, I could be kind of reclusive and not tell everything about me, because there's a specific boundary line that probably should not be crossed about information about me that need to be told to y'all, people watching the video. But at the same time, I feel like boundaries are a very important thing in this situation, and while it's also good to respect boundaries, it's also good to know how much of your personal boundary do you want to open up to others, and what's good to probably stay, keep in. If this is a group of people that don't actually know each other so well, or like aren't completely comfortable being like this, I guess, intimately opening up about personal stuff and using basically D&D as pseudo therapy, or at least some kind of a refresh to kind of explore some of their traumas and stuff, I don't think it's a good idea. Yes, Sheila sucks. She sucks big butt, but at the same time, not even good butt, like stinky mud butt. But at the end of the day, I feel like maybe it might not be a good idea to open up to people like Sheila, or just strangers in general that you don't even know. To somebody like Mary and Micah, I'll tell them whatever, whatever it is. Like, I'll tell them everything and anything. Like 99% of the things I will tell them, no problem, anytime. But Sheila doesn't sound like a kind of person that is even close to Bert, so I don't think it's going to be even good or even healthy to tell everything to somebody like Sheila, because all they're gonna do is just take what you say and gonna stomp on you and try to use that as ammunition, or just stomp on your feelings, stomp on your heart, or whatever she's gonna do in order to basically find a way to just lash out towards you. I don't think it's healthy for Bert to trust somebody like Sheila in the party at all with this kind of vulnerability stuff. In fact, in general, maybe it might be good to question whether it's a good thing to talk about all your vulnerabilities for this specific party, and how well do you know this party to be able to open up about this stuff. Now, the campaign has been split with Bert and friends and Sheila and 4 players. To anyone thinking Sheila should have just been kicked, I wholeheartedly agree there was something Bert was struggling with, but now we've been informed by DM friend that it's more of a transitional period for her being removed so they can wrap up storylines. That had been good constructive conversation between Bert and the friends about how this should have been nipped in the bud and feeling like they needed more support, that this was clearly bullying and Bert was hurt really badly by it. And that part is also being sorted out. What Bert is looking for by asking me about this post is like validation. That sucked super hard and was not acceptable behavior at the table, but they're also wondering if anyone else had a similar experience, because right now they're really struggling with it. Someone knew something so vulnerable about them and used it against them, and now Sheila can't unknow this about them. They feel exposed and betrayed and violated in a way. Please, if anyone has some kind comments or advice for my friend, do share. And please, no one bother when trying to kick Bert while they're down, because I'm also acting as comment filter and mean words don't reach them. Thank you all. I doubt that my little video, my tiny little channel will ever reach anyone at all, even Bert or even the OP writing over here. But I will say my personal advice, if you're in a situation where suddenly something vulnerable about you got released, maybe you yourself like said to somebody, let's say for example you're in the same position with Bert, something was sensitive, you had a vulnerability, you talked about it, and somebody's just basically kicking you when you're down about it because they're using that vulnerability to basically make fun of you. There are people out there that aren't good people. In a crowd of 99% of people that are great, there's 1% of snakes, and they're venomous, and they'll bite, and they'll constrict, and try to do whatever they can in order to basically get their own eggs, their own comeuppance. You know, imagine like a snake in a chicken coop, right? In a whole thing of chicken coop, there's always going to be a fox around or a snake around, and then we'll just want to get the egg. And whenever you reveal your vulnerabilities, your eggs, some people just want to use that in some capacity to manipulate, to bully, to do whatever, to hold and lord it over you. As much as it is important to play in a place and play with people that you can trust, it's also very important to hold some of the most vulnerable, precious cards very close to your chest, no matter what. Even if it's somebody that you knew for 6 months or so, unless you can completely trust them with everything in your life, hold your cards close and be very selective about who you talk about your vulnerabilities about too. And if you want to explore them in a game, you know, in a place that's safe and people that are not going to be judgmental, that's one thing. But at the end of the day, trusting just anybody out there just because they're a friend, unless you can trust them with your life, I will hold your cards close as much as possible, because at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to be beneficial to tell every Bob, Sam, and Sheila, for example, about all your vulnerabilities out there. I feel like some things you need to keep close to the chest, because some people are just not good people and really should not know about your vulnerabilities. It's important to know when to reveal your hand and when to keep your cards close to your chest. In my opinion, I feel like this is the best advice I could probably give. Does Sheila suck? Yeah, but at the end of the day, I feel like you need to look out for yourself, and some cards need to be played very close to the chest, if that makes any sense at all. Let's move on to the next story for today. I feel like I already gave as much advice as I possibly could. DM treats us as spectators to his campaign. Our group of 4 has been playing through a campaign for the better part of 6 months now, and it feels like our DM has become progressively worse. All started out fine, however, as the campaign goes on, feels like our DM doesn't actually care about our actions, with consistent and obvious dice fudging and BS to make sure the campaign progresses exactly how he wants. Enemies will roll consistent nat 20s, exactly when needed, and will help it change depending on if he thinks we've done enough for the fight to end. The second that one of our PCs gains or uses an ability, he would just change the situation to negate any benefit we might have gained, all in the name of having the hardest campaign. If your campaign is hard, it better be because the mechanics have been set up by default from the onset to be difficult, not if you're just making things conveniently more difficult the whole way time. Oh, you have Eldritch Blast that you like to use, and you have Agonizing Blast as a feature for it? Psych, you don't have anymore. Every enemy has force resistance, so it cuts the damage by half. Oh, you like to use Fireball? Everybody's immune to Fireball, specifically not Fire, but just Fireball. Oh, you have really high AC. Every enemy starts hitting 20s at all times. You know, if it's, let's say for example, a fixed difficulty, like the boss spawns in and they have a specific immunities or condition immunities, but they have vulnerabilities, the features that are fixed and they're supposed to be like this, that's one thing. It's like a puzzle the players have to try to solve mid-combat. But if you just change things on a whim, that's not even difficult. They're just unfair. They're just straight up cheating real time. Especially if you're fudging dice just to make sure your little special enemies and stuff constantly roll 20s. And it's straight up blatant cheating. It's a kind of game that's gonna feel not fun. Difficult by design is one thing, but difficult at every turn and every capacity, that's not fun at all. That's torture. This is turning to an already railroaded campaign into an unbearable slog where we are pushed from fight to fight, where no matter what we do, he will just BS until he deems fit to end it. and no way around fights, as everything must happen exactly how he wants. This has made it feel like our actions don't matter and that we're just spectators to our DM's campaign that we don't even play a part in. Honestly, just ranting at this point, but we're drawing to the conclusion of the campaign and aren't planning on letting him DM in the future. Update: just talked with the other players and we decided to end the campaign. The reason we didn't do this sooner was that we still have to interact with this guy daily. Didn't want things to be awkward. Probably should have done this sooner, but the campaign had become unplayable. At the end of the day, players will reach their limits. Some people have great limits, but you guys at least didn't make it last forever, at least the very end. You guys decided to get together, you decided, listen, it's unplayable, it's stressful, it's annoying, we don't want to play this. Do you guys want to play this? No? Let's just tell them we're done. Basically, when this campaign is over, we're done ski. Thank you. I could give you all the comments and stuff, but all I'm going to say is thank you for making the right decision together and for communicating about this together and tell the DM the campaign is over, because you guys would have had a miserable time. Just simply, like, everything you described so far sounds awful and terrible and unbearable. I'm glad you guys decided to end it. You found a good stopping ground and you decided to follow it. Thank you for that. I guess I'll move on to the next story for today. I got no more comments for this one. You guys did good, in my opinion. Players kept trying to sleep with NPCs even after I asked them to stop. When I, male, was 15, I finally convinced my friends, female 15, female 16, and male 14, to play D&D with me. I was the only one originally interested in the game, but once I explained everything and showed some games online, they were very excited to play. We finally set a day and met up to play out a one-shot I had written. Everything was going great until they met the first NPC. He was a half-elf man. I didn't describe his physical appearance. It was a first-time DM and not very good at it, but my friend went to ask a lot of questions about his appearance, which was obviously fine. The issue came when they started trying to flirt with him. They asked to have sex with him multiple times, asked him if he wanted to have a threesome and other very sexual things that we definitely shouldn't have known about at that age. At 15 and 16, really? You wouldn't know about this stuff? I mean, I knew a bunch of stuff even when I was 14, dude. I knew a lot of stuff. Probably some stuff I shouldn't have known, but the thing is, the internet is a thing. And I don't know if that means it's a good thing or a bad thing, but at the end of the day, you're gonna find things that you look for. And I look for a lot of stuff, and I learned a lot of things. A lot of things that probably determine me being a horn dog today, but at the end of the day, like, you guys are in puberty, you probably have sex at some capacity in your mind, so I guess because, you know, THXD, we just a bunch of immature teenagers, can we have sex and threesome with this character, you know, just for the funs and giggles of it? I don't know. I understand why you'd be awkward about it, but you guys are a bunch of teenagers going through puberty, so I mean, I guess it was inevitable. I don't know. Maybe a group is specific like that, who knows. I paused the game and told him I was uncomfortable with role-playing romantic or sexual scenarios, which I think is valid no matter the reason, but what I had to realize at the time was that I was aro ace and deeply uncomfortable and disgusted by sex in general. You need to make sure that you have boundaries no matter what. If you don't want to run sexual flirting encounters, you just have to tell your players, regardless of age, that you are not comfortable about running this sort of thing and that you don't want to be running that. And hopefully you did talk to them about it, or else the story is going to devolve into them being more of teenagers, I guess. I don't know. They said they would stop, and so we continued playing until they met with the next NPC, and were immediately back to making sexual advances on them. Thought the best way to get them to stop would be to tell them the NPC was only 14 because they're all playing adults, but because we were all IRL around that age, they continued to flirt with her, which of course made me uncomfortable for an entirely new reason. Suppose they weren't really into the actual story and fiction side of it, so they didn't visualize the interaction as 3 25+ men saying sexual things to a 14-year-old girl. But that's how it was happening in game, and how it was happening in my head. I'm pretty sure your friends were just clowning on you. You know how when you tell a teenager like, hey, don't do that, and they're like, okay, I don't, and then they would do it right afterwards because, you know, haha, funny, giggles, sex, ha, guys, funny, penis. When I was young, I thought penis was hilarious, and back in the day, yeah, I mean, a bunch of lads would say like, sorry, teacher, or substitute teacher won't do that, and then somebody would make the joke, and everybody go, ha, he, penis. Listen, I was stupid. We all were stupid. When you're a teenager, you're stupid. And a lot of things that usually shouldn't be funny are hilarious too. They're the funniest thing ever. So you just keep on keeping on because it's just for the joke and funny enough. And they're probably not taking the whole thing seriously, honestly. I don't want to excuse their behavior. Yeah, if you ask them to stop, they should stop. But at the end of the day, you guys are a bunch of teenagers that are immature. So like, it's canon. It's a canon event in a sense. The rest of the game continued in the exact same way. So 2 uncomfortable NPC interactions later, I decided every NPC was 8 years old and thankfully got them to stop. that also completely ruined the story I had spent so long writing. Safe to say, we never played again. I pretended the whole interaction never happened. For years, that was my only experience with D&D, but thankfully 6 years later, I'm now running a D&D campaign with a group of people who actually respect me and my boundaries. I lost contact with the group about 3 years after the D&D game for unrelated reasons. Outside of that game, they were amazing friends, but holy crap did they ruin D&D for me for years. You can have a lot of great friends. I have a lot of great friends, but not a lot of them I'm gonna invite to teach RPGs because maybe they don't have the patience for it. Maybe they can't take it seriously. Maybe they think it's too nerdy for them or too lame for them and stuff like that. Just because they're your friend doesn't mean they're gonna be a great player for you to teach RPG games. Especially at that age when the only thing they're thinking about is, hey, what's the NPC like? Can I bone them? Can we have a three-way? Tee-hee ha-ha penis. It's a bunch of immature people playing a game for the very first time, playing TTRPGs and stuff, and probably 3 of them are having fun and you feel uncomfortable because you have this whole story that you want everybody to take seriously, but they're just memeing about just being kids basically. They're being teenagers basically. They're just being teenagers, being stupid teenagers, or stupid teenagers are. But I'm glad they didn't ruin the game for you completely and you found a game to play with together. Overall, my experience with reading RPG horror stories that has to do with teenagers, it's never gonna go great unless you have specific people that really want to play the TTRPG specifically. You're gonna have a lot of immature people murder hobos or doing some weird stuff or doing things for the sake of funny. Mostly just murder hobos, but instead of murder hobos, you got this. And as unfortunate as it is, and it sucks that it was your first experience to teach RPGs, but it kind of goes to show that not all your friends are going to be good for teaching RPGs. You got to look for specific people that are going to be good for teaching RPGs. It's the same thing when you're looking for somebody to play in a band, like in a rock band together, or a school band or whatever. You got to find people that are going to be good at playing the instrument, are going to be good at actually keeping up with stuff, not just your best friends. And with that, that's going to be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.